Hi, everyone. Welcome. I am Diane Sharp. I'm the Director of Admissions for the Wharton MBA Program for Executives, and I'm based in Philadelphia. We really appreciate you joining us for our webinar, Belonging at Wharton. We have a fabulous panel for you tonight, some current students and an alumna. They're here to answer your questions, so we just want to encourage you to post your questions along the way. To get started, I'm going to turn it over to my West Coast counterpart, Barbara Kraft.
Thanks, Diane. And I'm director of the admissions in San Francisco, and really happy to be here this evening with this great panel. I've been really looking forward to this. So just a little bit about the program. If you've been considering applying, at the Wharton School, we have just one MBA, but more than one way to get that MBA. You can either leave your career or put it on pause and go to our full-time MBA in Philadelphia, or apply for our MBA program for executives, and we admit a cohort in San Francisco as well as a cohort in Philadelphia. We do consider the MBA for executives or executive MBA, whichever way you refer to it, as one class and two cohorts. And even though we're on opposite coast, we do kick the program off together the end of May each year in Philadelphia with our first week of classes in orientation. And after that time, then everyone kind of goes back to their respective coasts for the 2-year program, which meets every other weekend essentially for 2 years. The first year primarily being the core of the program and year 2 being electives. And when it comes to year 2, you can actually take classes on the coast opposite of the one you applied to. So there's a lot of flexibility. I assure you it is the full Wharton MBA, the same as you would get if you were to go full time. It's the same number of credit hours, the same number of classroom hours, and in many cases, the same faculty. And that includes San Francisco. Our faculty do fly out to teach in San Francisco as well. Those on this line will I'm sure assure you that it is not MBA light in any way. In fact, you're juggling what's equivalent to that full-time Wharton MBA program while continuing to work full-time. But the beauty of that is that so is everybody else in your class, and we recruit an incredibly diverse class. And in any given class, you have CEOs, CFOs, product managers, entrepreneurs, Navy SEALs, people from nonprofit. The more diverse, the better in terms of industry backgrounds and life experiences. And all of that richness comes into the classroom. So the conversation is amazing, and you're able to apply what you're learning as soon as you're back to work on Monday. So that's a little plug for the program. If you're looking at this May 2023, then our application deadlines are October the 12th and January the 18th, and everything will need to be in by the deadline. So we'll be having a lot more sessions such as this, a number of webinars coming up, and we're going to try to do this year some in-person events in our larger cities and markets. So stay engaged with our website and the events page of our website. You'll start to see more events populate over the coming weeks. So with that, I am going to ask our panel to introduce themselves, maybe just share a little bit about where you're dialing in from tonight, whether you're currently in the program or have graduated and what year you graduated, and a little bit about your background in industry, if you would. And Kyle, you're closest to me, so I'm going to start with you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Barb and Diane. I'm super excited to have you all here today and to be here with you. So I'm tuning in from New York City, Manhattan. I'm a member of the WEMBA 48 class on the Philadelphia campus. So started about 5 or 6 weeks ago in May. So Caleb and I are actually the same class. I'll probably say that in a minute, but met him in Philadelphia about 5 weeks ago. Currently, I work at Microsoft, so I spent most of my career in diversity and inclusion and human resources type of positions. And most recently, I'm currently working on Microsoft's return to workplace approach, which we've already returned to the workplace, but doing a lot of the data analyses and themes and trends and working with leaders on what the future of hybrid workplace flexibility looks like for us as a company. And I'm also the HR business partner to Microsoft's general counsel.
Thank you. Erica?
Erica Godinez, very happy to be with you here tonight. I'm a major in the United States Marine Corps. I've been doing that for just over 20 years. I'm stationed out of Quantico, Virginia. I am a WEMBA 47, so I'm in my second year, just started that out. So been doing military for 20 years on and off. Right now I'm a military police officer, but I work out of headquarters Marine Corps doing nothing related to military police. It's all policy and retention. So but yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Thank you. Caleb?
Hey everyone, thanks Barb, thanks Diane. As Kyle mentioned, he and I are in the same class. Actually, we were so excited to be on this webinar together, and it's sort of indicative of like the excitement you build when you meet your classmates on the other coast. So I'm coming at you live from Las Vegas, and I am a real estate developer, private equity, and I'm currently pursuing healthcare and surgical center development across the Southwest and the Pacific Northwest. And actually, I'm a military veteran, and Erica might get similar benefits, but it's a very beneficial program for military veterans. And so I'm using this time to start out on my own, which is sort of the first moment I've ever really had to do this, which is exciting.
Thank you, and thank you for mentioning that, Caleb. We are a yellow ribbon school, so it is, between the GI and yellow ribbon, it does cover a good portion of the program. So thank you for that, and thank you both for your service. Lauren.
Hi everyone, my name is Lauren Schmidt, and thank you for having me. I think I'm the sole alumni on the webinar today, so I'm very excited to meet the current students and hopefully answer some questions. I'm currently a portfolio manager with an investment firm. I actually came from the nonprofit side. I worked in healthcare for a little bit. And working in investment management now. I am calling in from Boise, Idaho. I think I was the only one in my class from Boise, and I think there were one or two others that also came from Idaho, and was part of the class 45 on the West Coast.
Thank you, guys. As you can see, these four WEMBAs, as we call them, whether you're a student or an alum, you're a WEMBA, are very, very diverse in their professional backgrounds. We really value that in our program. It does, as Barb mentioned at the outset, really add to the conversation in the classroom, and our professors totally value the experience and diversity that our students are bringing. To start off, I'd love to find out how each of you decided to, and why each of you decided to undertake an MBA. Why is this, was this for you the right time in your career? And I guess we'll just go in the same order just to simplify things.
Awesome. Yeah, happy to go. And thanks for the question. So for me, I have a master's of industrial and labor relations, so I've gotten a prior master's degree and had done that as a full-time program about 7 years ago. And I've spent, I think I said at the beginning, I've spent the majority of my career to date in diversity and inclusion, DEI, and HR business partner roles. And so when I thought about where I want my career to go from here, I really wanted to pivot to more business management, kind of COO focused positions within Microsoft and the tech industry. And typically at companies like Microsoft and in big tech, you need kind of an extra nudge or experience and training to make that sort of a pivot. And so since it's been about 7 years, I thought it was the right time to explore MBA programs. Didn't want to do a full-time program again since I've already done a full-time graduate program. And Wharton's really stood out to me because it consistently, as you all know, ranks as one of the top programs. And especially when it comes to ROI on a degree, it always comes out in first or top of the list for that. I also was really impressed by the sense of community that Wharton builds. So I did some of the, I attended some of the panels that you all are attending now that we're doing here tonight, and was really impressed with the tight-knit community, and also the requirement that everyone has to stay on site during class weekends. That really actually goes a really long way to building that sense of community, and I thought it was quite unique from the other programs that I saw, and the diversity of backgrounds and even just from geographies where people are coming from for class. That was really remarkable to me, and kind of set Wharton aside from the other programs with similar type of formats.
Thanks, Erica.
Okay, over to me. Yeah, so actually 3 years ago, MBA was nowhere on my radar. I knew eventually I was going to transition out of the military, but I thought, okay, I have enough in my resume with what I've done that I'd be able to do something that I was passionate about or that I like to do. But then one of the Marines that worked for me asked me to be a recommender for a regular Wharton MBA program. And as I was doing my research to write that letter, I'm like, wow, this sounds amazing. And this sounds like something that would really be up my alley. So as I did more research, reached out to Diane and her team, it just became apparent that this was something that I wanted to be a part of very, very quickly. And, I did look at other programs. I looked at UVA Darden, and Diane knows that I applied and got in there to getting into Wharton. But it's Wharton. What more can you say? It's just the #1 business school, and the culture there. It's not the finance culture that people think it is. It's way more than that. Of course, you have that when you go to Wharton. You have to make sure that that's shored up, and you have the quant side. But really, especially with Dean James coming on board, you can see that Wharton is striving to be good at everything that has to do with business, not just finance. So yeah, so that's why Wharton, and I think it's lived up to that expectation. And obviously the time me transitioning out of the Marine Corps, it met up perfectly. So yeah.
Great. Thank you. Caleb.
So the timing kind of is aligned with maybe where the market cycle is too for me. So when I left the Air Force and I started in real estate development in 2014, I was working in San Francisco, and it was one of the hottest markets. And I had the opportunity actually then to go and get my MBA. But all the advice I was getting was, if you want a career in real estate private equity, you just need to do more deals. And so a full-time MBA really isn't aligned with that. And so actually, I always have advised my previous analysts that they shouldn't waste their time in graduate school. They should just focus on doing more deals, because that's how you progress in the field. And so as I started thinking about my own professional development, I realized that if I ever wanted to go to first of all, I have 3 years of free graduate school, right? So that has always been looming over my head. What do I do? Do I go get a master's in literature or, art history? So a full-time MBA was definitely out of the picture, just because of the industry that I'm in. And when I started researching the different executive formats for MBAs, Wharton stood out for one, its residency component. So you're all staying in a hotel together. And so you run into your classmates in the elevators, in the bar, in the restaurant. And so you're constantly interacting with really smart and accomplished people. These aren't 27-year-old, 26-year-old MBAs, although there are some fellows. but you know, these are people that have already succeeded a lot, and I noticed that in when Wharton would feature applicants or students and alumni from the program, and so it was really a no-brainer for me. And I actually only applied to the Wharton program because none of the other programs sort of offered that entire set of things. You know, there are some programs that have a residency, but I guess they don't book your hotel. So everyone can end up in a different hotel, you know, then what's the point of that? So I think that there's a lot of competitive advantages to the program being in two coasts, you know, one MBA. So that's,
Yes, we're very passionate about that residential component. We really want you to set aside your busy personal and professional life to fully immerse yourself in this experience and to get to know your classmates. And I really should mention that, because we get this question all the time, well, what if I only live blocks from the hotel? We still do not break it out because we really would like you to be there. Sometimes there are study groups that go late into the evening. To Caleb's point, you know, sometimes it's just those later conversations in the day where you're still talking about things in the class, but it's at the local pub, or you're going out to dinner as a group, or you're meeting as a club. There are still things going on, and that's where a lot of the great networking takes place. Because when you're in class, it's hard to be chit-chatting with your neighbor because you're engaged in class. So those downtimes are really important. Thanks, Lauren.
Yeah, and I think we might have to rearrange this order a little bit so I don't keep following up the Marine and the Air Force side of it. So I started looking into business school because I came from the nonprofit side. I had a really unconventional career. I coached collegiate lacrosse for a few years. I worked in nonprofit, and I felt like I needed something to kind of shore up my experience and really help focus my career and take the next step. I was hoping to get into finance. As I started evaluating business school programs, a mentor of mine told me, you know, there are only probably 5 that are worth looking into, with Wharton being the top one. So I was really drawn to Wharton. You know, and it's funny thinking about where I was then versus now. You know, I was initially drawn to Wharton because of the strong finance program. I spoke with a few of the alumni that love their experience, that you know, to everyone's point, had some great conversations with their classmates and developed some great relationships with their classmates. So it seemed like it was the perfect fit for what I was looking for in my career at that time. I think to speak to the value and to really have the experience of having the conversations in the pub at the end of long class days, or there were a couple of us that would go running in the morning before class started, that became good friends that, you know, I've relied on to help with a couple of business deals, a couple of companies that I've been looking into, that I know, you know, I could pick up the phone and give them a call and they would answer or apologize for not answering and give me a call in a couple hours. So I was definitely drawn to the community, and I really felt like that was true to my experience, if not then some, after graduating.
Thank you. And first of all, Lauren, you're very humble. For all of you out there, she was a total rock star lacrosse player at Stanford. And also, right before we jumped on this call, she was sharing with us how she's connected with 2 other alums, and they're doing some pretty big deals and launching, you know, a startup. So I think that's fascinating. Thank you. And leading right into that, if you all could share and I know Kyle and Caleb, you're a little newer at this, but I'm sure you can even answer this question, how the Wharton MBA so far has impacted you personally and professionally, or either or.
Do you want us to do same order, or can we kind of?
Feel free to riff. Yeah.
So I can talk about this. So I used the beginning of this program to launch my own venture with a business partner who's a physician, an anesthesiologist, and we're doing healthcare real estate development, healthcare anchored real estate development. And I know nothing about healthcare, and he knows nothing about real estate development. And I have, since starting in the program about 5 weeks ago, I have set up calls with, we have 14 physicians in our class. I've set up calls with 3 of them. And I talked with a fourth, a healthcare payment design consultant. And I can't remember who said it, but basically, if you want to set up, time with your classmates who are all very accomplished already, they are very quick to respond, and it's meant a lot to me as I venture into a new, this new space for me. And in fact, I'm, one of my classmates, we're kind of exploring partnering up together actually on the venture. So I think it's been a really fun way to, bump into each other in the elevator and be like, hey, wait a minute, like, and then, kind of stars collide. So it's been, for that reason alone, it's been immensely impactful. And then there's a lot of soft stuff as well.
Yeah, I can build on that too. I think just since Caleb and I are both about 5 or 6 weeks in, it's been interesting. I think I'm married, and so kind of prepped my husband for months leading up to this, and my friends and family, and honestly boss and coworkers, of the time commitment, what it would be like, that it would be challenging. And it's interesting because you can do all that prep, and then it's not really until you're in it where you realize how important the prioritization is and how crucial your support network is. But I've found it's actually made a lot. I mean, I'm 5 or 6 weeks in, so ask me in 6 months, hopefully it's the same answer. But I've found it's made a lot of my personal relationships stronger, and it's also made my working relationships stronger too, because I've found ways to delegate more, ways to honestly say no to more things that aren't as critical, so that I can focus on the schoolwork and the networking too, to the points that were already made of. I think I've been in a tech bubble for so long that the diversity of experiences and backgrounds within our WEMBA class is really kind of breathtaking. The different connections that we make every time we're at class or even at orientation, it was quite phenomenal to kind of step out of the tech industry. And there's other people in tech, but it's really a phenomenal balance of backgrounds, and the doctors in particular. I think the number of physicians, I was most surprised by that, and the connections you can make there. And even for people who get sick or have health issues, there's classmates who consult directly with our peers and get connections from them. So just things like that as well are areas that I was really surprised by so far.
I think my year, Kyle, and to use your phrase, to riff off of that, my year, I think somebody broke a wrist playing pickup basketball, and one of the surgeons in our class operated on him. So I'm not sure if that was a direct result of WEMBA or not. It probably was. But I mean, we're all sitting in class like, wait a minute, don't we have a test tomorrow and you're operating on him? But I think to Barb's point, I think my connections through Wharton are pretty obvious. I really dove into to getting to know my classmates and jumping into a bunch of different projects, kind of anything that I thought was interesting that my classmates were working on. So I got involved with one classmate that had a medical device, an orthopedic medical device company. So we did a little bit of work together to see if we could market and sell this device. And then there were a bunch of us that are interested in entrepreneurship and venture capital. So we were always sharing ideas and deals with each other, kind of stress testing our theories and theses on these different companies, consistently being proven wrong, which I think was really fun. And I think a great part of having that trust and respect with your class, where your classmates, where people can tell you, no, you're not really thinking about that correctly, or that's not exactly what you think it might be, and hopefully, saving you from some bad investments. But then, I think most immediate is a classmate and I started talking at the end after we graduated, and we were just kind of working through a couple different ideas that had come up from some classwork that we had done, and specifically we were talking about 4% of investment dollars go to female founders, and is there something that we can do about that? So my one classmate and I started kind of building out this idea, putting legs on it. We invited another classmate to join us, and in the past, I guess, 6 months, we pulled together an investment firm. We've made, we've found 2 companies that we're actively working with. We're probably going to close on our 3rd investment pretty soon, and then we have another one in the pipeline that we'll see. But our goal was to have 4 by the end of the 1st year, and it looks like we're tracking towards that.
That's great. You do, you instantly become part of and have access to that Wharton alumni network of over 100,000 alumni around the globe, probably the largest alumni network of any business school in the world. And that doesn't include the University of Pennsylvania alumni. Then you're talking hundreds of thousands. Diane, do you know that exact number? When you include UPenn, I mean, you're talking hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, absolutely.
Erica, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I actually had a more general response to it, but I think for this group it might be important. But so as a Marine, a female Marine that happens to be queer as well, you can imagine that I'm one of very few in a room usually that has those qualifiers. Generally, I'm the only woman in any room that I'm in the Marine Corps. So quite frankly, the confidence that Wharton has given me that I've been, I'm around classmates that are awesome, all very accomplished, yet humble as well. And to be in the room with them, doing the same classes, and being able to keep up with them, it just, that confidence when I go back to work is through the roof, and I'm able to speak up more and speak directly in a room full of these, people that outrank me in some cases, or just don't look like me. But yeah, knowing that I can go toe to toe with people at Wharton makes the Marine Corps super easy.
Hashtag Wharton proud.
Yeah, you don't have to be a Marine to attend WEMBA, but it helps, I think.
The first week is like boot camp.
Yeah. I think most Marines would probably laugh at us calling that boot camp.
Yeah, in fact, we have that leadership venture to Quantico for all those people who who aren't Marines, but they want to test some of their leadership skills, right, under extreme conditions. We send them down to you, Erica.
2 days.
I was able to meet some of them up there when they did it down there at Quantico. I went to watch them. I didn't yell at them or anything. I left that to the professionals, but they had a great time. They hated it during, but afterwards they had nothing but great things to say.
And of course, thanks to Erica, because she's actually in transit. She agreed to do this weeks ago, and of course something came up. So here she is on the road dialing in. So, and I want to encourage the folks who are viewing this today to ask questions. Anything that comes to mind, Barb and I will pose it to the panel. So, and kind of to riff off of what Erica was saying, all of you, that one thing Barb and I tend to worry about is that there are people who are ruling themselves out before they apply to Wharton. That's our greatest fear. I think Wharton has this reputation, and you know, it's 1881 is when the school started, so it's been a while to buck that trend. And yes, we're good at finance, and yes, we have a strong Wall Street presence, but it's so much more than that, and we want every voice represented. And I would love to just then address the topic at hand, belonging at Wharton. If all of you guys could just weigh in, and did you feel any trepidation, or how did you feel when you were reaching out? And now that you're in the program or an alumna, how did you feel about the whole vibe with Wharton?
I can go first since I went last. So I had an interesting kind of personal situation happen after I was admitted to Wharton. My spouse transitioned from female to male during that time, and you know, there's a bio book that comes out and all these things. And at that point, I had already turned in all that information prior to this whole personal situation. And I reached out to Diane, and I'm like, I'm not exactly sure, you know, something internally, I was just like, I'm not sure how this is going to go. But within, like, I would say 30 minutes, the bio book was updated and we resent out, and it was seamless. And even going and talking to my teammates, you get put with the team. You know, this was even new for me, even after being a lesbian for my whole life. Now it's like, this is a new situation that I wasn't necessarily planning for in my life to happen. But no one blinks at school. Like, you tell them about yourself and it's just like, okay, great. Like, I can't wait to meet your husband. It's just been amazing. It's been phenomenal. And I can't say anything more than, you know, I feel at home at Wharton.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to go too. And thank you for sharing that, Erica. That was super great to hear how you were welcomed. I've been thoroughly impressed throughout the process. I wouldn't say I was that worried at all about being accepted, or from an inclusion point of view. I had attended actually an LGBTQI+ panel for Wharton last fall, and so was really encouraged by everything I'd heard there from current and former WEMBAs. I think what really stood out to me though was, you know, since we're in Pride Month, or the last day or two of Pride Month here, just how many of my colleagues in the Philadelphia cohort wanted to come up to New York for New York City Pride, especially there were people who hadn't had as much exposure to the queer community. I was really impressed with that, and the number of people who wanted to learn more and were just eager to get exposed to things that they hadn't before. So that's been really encouraging to see, and the amount of inclusion I've experienced has been phenomenal. And for people who weren't as exposed, like I said, a lot of it is more wanting to learn more and eager to understand more about the community. And we even have a Slack channel. I think Caleb, you may have created it for our WEMBA 48 class, or someone in the SF campus did, for LGBTQI+ individuals and allies. So we have a lot of information there, and there's an allyship chat that we have in Slack for our class as well, which is super helpful. But it's been a great experience from that perspective.
Well, now I'm feeling like I missed out on the Slack channel. Can I be added in now, or?
If I remember, you got married during the program, right, Lauren? I remember seeing beautiful wedding photos.
I did, and that's probably something I wouldn't highly recommend. That probably bordered on a little bit too much juggling, but yes, I did. I got married in between the first and second semester, and everything turned out great. So through no contribution of my own. But I think probably from a more general stance, similar to Kyle, I was never worried about being accepted by classmates. Maybe part of that's, you know, after living in San Francisco for so long. I definitely did notice that my classmates went out of their way to ask for wedding photos, and were asking about my now wife, and really engaged in my life, which is encouraging and welcoming. I think my bigger challenge, or the thing that I guess I kind of had to work through the most, was feeling like feeling the imposter syndrome, feeling like I'm a total non-traditional candidate. You know, I'm going to be going to school with all of these people that have these super impressive backgrounds, and I somehow managed to slip through the cracks. And I just felt I couldn't have found a more welcoming environment, both in terms of, you know, working through classwork together, getting to know my classmates. My classmates were interested in my background. You know, I felt like I found a community from day one, which was really encouraging, and something that I was pretty worried about. And I think I tried to make my mission to get to know everybody in my class, and you know, become friends with everybody. But I was blown away by how welcoming and encouraging all my classmates were.
Inevitably, after you know, orientation, when everybody does their introduction, I always have one or two students that come up to me and say, "Did you make a mistake? How did I get in?" And I say, "No, I promise you, Diane and I and our team, we've been doing this for a long time. You belong here. You wouldn't be here if we didn't really feel you should be here."
I think I was too shy to even ask.
And, you know, to Diane's point, for everybody out there on the webinar, we don't want you to self-select out before you even get to the point of applying. We are an office of admission. We are looking at candidates to find reason to admit them, not reason to deny them.
Absolutely.
Maybe I'm last on the question. But yeah, I agree with what Barb just said. You should definitely always apply, put yourself out there. And it's a good way to have a conversation with your boss about your future. So it's a good test to do that. So like Erica, because I was in the military, I also have been in very, maybe not so friendly environments towards the LGBTQ community. And even in real estate, it can be not friendly. In fact, I was turned down for an assignment in Boise, Lauren, because they thought that it wouldn't be good for a gay person to do acquisitions in a predominantly Mormon town. That happened to me. And so contrasting that to the Wharton classroom experience, it's like night and day. The management professor starts off the lecture in our human and social capital class, which I thought was very interesting, always with some DEI lens. And that, you know, even though the rest of the lecture may not be about DEI, it frames the entire conversation and reminds us that it reminds the whole class that, you know, we're all different. And so it's really rooted in the curriculum too, I'd say.
Anything that surprised you about your classmates?
So many doctors, and they all study so much.
Well, between you veterans and active duty and the doctors, everybody's well taken care of.
Yes.
We always have to have a few sprinkle of attorneys too, just in case.
I think it's been fun learning about the diversity of the kinds of doctors. I mean, the doctors that are in our class are all also executives. We have a chief medical officer at UCSF. We have, you know, a director of an ICU unit, a healthcare entrepreneur, physician. And so I think that I'd say that really surprised me.
So I know a lot of you on the call, you know, have very significant other people in your life. And Kyle, you mentioned, I think you touched on it a little bit about getting your husband on board with this endeavor. And that's a really, I mean, because it's still early in the cycle and May is a ways away, and October 12th, that first deadline, you still have some time. We're often recommending that's one of the first things that you want to do is you want to get the important people in your life on board with this program and the commitment that is involved. We try to include significant others as much as possible throughout the 2 years. Sometimes we even have special events where, you know, partners, spouses, significant others are, you know, welcome to attend. And getting your company on board is really important too. So our recommendation is this is like the first conversation that you want to have. Any thoughts about having those conversations, whether it be with your company or your spouse, partner?
I'm happy to start. I think one of the biggest or the most helpful aspects of that conversation, for me, speaking with my now wife, was, and I already had applied before we met, so I got lucky from that standpoint. But as I was telling her a bit about the program, I think one of the key elements that I brought up is, or that I think is important to bring up, is why this is important for your career development and why you feel, how you feel this is going to drive you forward. I would imagine the same would go in professional relationships as well.
Yeah, I actually, to build on that, well, since it's Microsoft, I made a PowerPoint for my manager of like the different pros and cons and how it would be good long term and worth the investment. And I actually kind of leveraged some of that with my husband. So I tried to start presenting to him, and it didn't work well. But that presentation derailed. But yeah, I think you know, with my husband, I always talked about, you know, I think I want to go at some point get more of a business focused degree and would really like doing that at some point. And I kind of laid the groundwork for a while, and we had conversations about what that would look like. We don't have any children yet. We have a dog who's basically we treat as a human child, but even just talking through the logistics of that and what it will look like and the ways that I can kind of help offset some of the load that he takes when I'm down at Philadelphia for class weekends or studying late. I think those are the factors that I think it sounds like some people often forget is the study component as well, where you may not be on campus, but there's nights where you will study late for things like an econ midterm that I have coming up on Friday. And so there's elements of that I think are just important to level set, where there's going to be peaks where it's more work and times where you may have more of an opportunity to make up the difference of what you didn't do around the house from the personal side.
Great point, that open communication. And out on our website, we do have the 2-year calendar for the class that just started, you know, this past May. So that'll kind of be a good point of reference as you're having those conversations. You know, feel free to point that out. It gives the visual layout. You are expected to be in class for all the weekends that are highlighted on the calendar. We don't have the calendar yet for the class that will start May 2023, but I expect we'll have it before long. So kind of keep your eye on the website. But if you need a good visual reference and a talking point for now, you can use the May 2022 start date.
Yeah, that 24-month calendar was really what I leveraged whenever I was talking to anybody at work or my spouse, really seeing the ask of being on campus. There's some weekends that are 3 days long. And you really, both my spouse and I are in a sense attending Wharton because there's so much that he's shouldering while I'm in class or I have to study, to include putting things aside to the side that we aren't doing, right? We're not taking vacations. We're not, you know, if we travel anywhere, it's usually it's a family emergency type situation. So it's really, you both need to be on board, and it'll make it that much easier when things come up during that time, because they will. Life happens.
Yeah.
The conversation with my husband has gone the other way than where I've been actually telling him that he needs to apply. There's a Philadelphia couple in the class, a husband and wife. I believe in our San Francisco class, one of my classmates, their husband is an alum of the program. And I think it kind of speaks volumes when you know, going through the program and then coming to the conclusion that your significant other should also make that same investment. And I'd say that, like, I feel, you know, in this short time that I've been in the program so far, it's only really doubled down on my recommendation to my husband. So that's sort of kind of the conversation I've been having with him.
Have him call me, Caleb. Have him call me.
Yeah. And actually, this kind of leads right into a question that we have here online. The investment financially. So it might be a little late for some folks to join the military and get benefits, and gone are the days that companies are really investing in people. That's the exception, not the rule. Can you imagine both partners in a marriage paying for this together? So why is it worth the investment? I mean, if you didn't do it yourself, you know, you have some help, but how should someone approach that sticker shock that is just natural? Someone said, weighing with that, because there are other programs that might not take as much of your checkbook. So how would you approach that? And what would you say to this individual?
Well, again, I think being on the other side of the investment, I can totally appreciate. It's a big number, and yes, to your point, it's a little late for me to join the military, but you know, I see some of the opportunities that I've come across since graduating. I mean, even in the program, and I think even with this investment firm, it's almost paid for itself. I think, you know, the career opportunities. I think, you know, you have higher earning potential, but I think in terms of the network that you make and those deep relationships that you make, the financial investment more than pays for itself. And I think the emotional investment is also, the ROI is pretty incredible.
Yeah, actually, I'm paying completely out of pocket, so I use my GI Bill for my bachelor's degree because I joined the military as an enlisted Marine. But so I can tell you that I already have one of my friends from NASDAQ. She's telling me that if I want a job there, and you know, I just mentioned that I'm transitioning. I'm going to need a job at Louie Louie's. That's what we call the Wharton Pub. It's a restaurant where we stay at the Hilton. And you know, a lot of the classmates are like, tell me what you want to do, and you know, I'll see what we have for you. It's a matter of what I want at this point. It's just been truly amazing. That Wharton network, it is a real thing. It's a real thing, and the benefit there alone, I think will pay for this and then some.
Yeah.
And it's an investment in yourself that no one can take away. Want to mention too that as a Wharton alum, you can come back and audit classes, elective classes at any time in your life at no charge. So we're very passionate about lifelong learning at Wharton. We want to make sure that our alumni continue to stay sharp and well-tooled, and they're always welcome back. The other thing is, when you're looking at programs, not all programs are created equal. So make sure you're comparing kind of apples to apples and you're really doing your due diligence, not just in terms of what's the bottom line price, but how long is that program? How many classroom hours are you going to get as a result? What kind of things are included in that price tag? You know, in some programs, it includes everything, like the Wharton program, from soup to nuts, all the way down to your cap and gown. The only thing we don't include is transportation to and from the program and some of the block weeks or the global business week. But everything else, your meals, your lodging, everything is included, books, materials, so you don't need to think about any of those things. But that's not the case everywhere. It's not that we are probably one of the longest programs out there at 2 full years. So that's to be taken into consideration as well. And just earlier today, Diane and I were having this conversation about even the fact at Wharton, you know, it's not any more expensive to attend the executive program versus our full-time program. In fact, at the end of the day, it's less expensive because you're not walking away from a salary to come back to school. And our full-time program does tell people to budget $100,000 or so per year for all in, including tuition and lodging and materials and things. So it's something definitely to think about, is, you know, whether you want to continue with, you know, that career progression and that juggle and applying what you're learning as you go through the program, and keeping in mind that the network that you're with on a week-to-week basis is all active and live, and you're not waiting 2 years to tap into it or to apply again what you're learning. And you have your classmates as a network, and then you have all of their networks as a network, and then you have the broader Wharton network and the Penn network as well.
I think we're getting close to the bottom of the hour. So one thing we'd like to ask each of you to do is to share any tips, any last parting thoughts for the folks who are logged on today or who will watch the recording as they go through this whole process to consider EMBA programs.
Words of wisdom.
So I guess I'll go. I'll kick it off. So I highly recommend doing what Kyle did and making a PowerPoint. You know, I had written a memo and had gotten a bunch of different, you know, stakeholder support, and I think it really opens up a conversation about you know, your professional growth, and then you can kind of use that to really think about, you know, is this the right cycle for you to apply or not? I think that's my #1 recommendation.
Yeah, and I think having, like, I let my manager know, to build off what Caleb said, even before I started applying to programs, or even where I knew where I was really looking to go, so that I had her buy-in and knew that she had almost a year to plan for and kind of adjust and mentally prepare for what that would look like. And so now, like, on class weekends when I have my out of message or out of office on, like, I always have the air cover, and that investment from my entire leadership team all the way up to our chief HR officer is there. And so it lets me know that I can truly unplug and experience everything that WEMBA has to offer. Because that's part of it too, is I think we've talked about the network so much tonight, but you really can't overemphasize how amazing the network is, and taking advantage of getting to know your classmates when you're there for a weekend and then gone for 2 weeks. It's helpful to capitalize on that.
Mm-hmm.
I think to emphasize that, the advice I would have for somebody that's considering an MBA program would be to talk to the alumni. I think you can find out a ton of information about the programs. You know, I think most people from my class, and you know, would be happy to chat and maybe gush about our experience. I think it would be really informative. And then I think it might also be telling to see who gets back to you and who doesn't. So I think hearing people's experience, but seeing who's open to having a conversation about that experience would be helpful.
Yeah, and I just, too, what I would add is, you know, it's been said before, but don't self-select out. There is no reason 10, 20 years ago, I thought I'd be at an Ivy League school. But, you know, with my mentors pushing me along and helping me along, and allowing me to have that confidence when maybe I didn't have it myself, but they had it for me. There's plenty of reasons why I should have been like, nope, there's no way I'm getting into Wharton. but I was able to shore up some of my math deficiencies and make it. And I am in year 2 of a MBA program at the Wharton School, which is crazy to me. So don't self-select out, apply, reach out. You can reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn, and I can tell you, what I did. If you're in that category, that you're more of a poet than a quant, but don't say no just because it's something internal that you think you can't do it. You definitely can.
We love our poets, and I can't wait to see what you do next, Erica.
Thanks, Barb.
Okay, well, this has been great. And as you can see, our WEMBAs are very, very open to engaging with you. And because of the era we're in, we're not doing as much in person. So please reach out to Barb and me sooner than later. The fact that it's still June and you guys are already in the process of doing that, that's great. You know, the 2 hardest things, the most time-consuming things are getting that sponsorship lined up, just permission to do this from whoever the stakeholders are, and getting the rust off, those basic academic foundational skills that you're going to need when you get to this kind of program. Because once it starts, you don't have time to get the rust off. So Barb and I are here to help guide you so you can. We do require a standardized test result. That'll save you from asking that question, because we have to have the same admissions requirements as our full-time counterpart does, because we are conferring the same degree. We have the same professors, and you guys are a little rusty. So you'll be glad you did. So please reach out to Barb and me, to these folks on LinkedIn, and we hope we see you further in the process.
Thank you all very much. This was so fun. Appreciate you sharing your experiences, and we're out here, so give us a call. Thanks. Have a great night, everyone. Good night.
Thanks so much.
Good night.
Thank you.
See you soon.